Hello everybody and welcome back to another Maidstone United preview. This time we're taking a little look at Maidstone versus Chesterfield, the top of the league team of course. First place, 21 points in just 9 games, undefeated this season, and it is going to be a grueling task for Maidstone to get something from this game. However, coming off the back of that Bromley game last week, of course, that 3-0 defeat away at Hayes Lane, the Stones know they've got to up their game this week, so we may see a potential upset. Chesterfield coming off the back of a pretty dubious result versus Yeovil, so let's get into it and see what I think is going to happen in this game. So, top of the league, Chesterfield currently undefeated in the National League, 9 games, 6 wins, 3 draws, and really you kind of have to look at their results so far and ask yourself, where is this loss going to come from? Because they've currently played a lot of good opposition. They've also managed to get good results against their two biggest competitors for the league this season, arguably in Wrexham and Notts County. A draw 2-2 against Notts, which was potentially quite unfortunate for Chesterfield. They probably should have got a little bit more from that game. And then, of course, a 2-0 win versus Wrexham. Played them off the park, could have been more. So, yeah, a really tough side, Chesterfield. As I said, unbeaten in the division. And they are on the cusp of making history at their club. They have never gone the first 10 games of the season unbeaten before. So I watched the pre-match interview that was put out on the Chesterfield YouTube channel ahead of this game, and that was spoken about a little bit, how that impacts players, how that impacts preparation, and they did speak quite confidently about it. They said that we don't really consider it all too much. It's something which, of course, it will be on people's minds, but when it comes to match preparations and things, preparing just for the game is what they want to do. But of course, that will be playing on their mind. 10 games unbeaten in any stage of the season is fantastic, but doing it at the start of the season as well, when potentially your players might not be up to speed, there might be new teams in the division looking to stamp their authority in the division. So you do have to ask yourself, where is the loss coming from? Well, for me, potentially not against Maidstone in quite a negative perspective. However, that is not to say that we cannot get a result in this game. Currently in the National League, Chesterfield have scored 19 goals in 9 games, so just over 2 average per game, and they've conceded 10 goals, which is, of course, an average of just over 1 per game. So that does tell you that their defence can be got at. In their last 5 games, they've actually managed to get 4 wins and a draw. The draw being last weekend versus Yeovil, a 2-2 draw there. So that's going to be a result that this team, Maidstone, are going to be looking at ahead of this game, going, well, they've slipped up a little bit there. They've slipped up just a tiny bit. Yeovil, of course, not one of the best teams in the division, currently 19th in the table, 8 points on the board for Yeovil versus the 21 at Chesterfield. So they managed to get a result against Chesterfield. Unfortunately for Chesterfield, they did have a couple of their big boys not playing, not fit. Asante, Dobra, Shamanga all out injured last game with knocks. In this pre-match interview that I did watch from the Chesterfield perspective, they did mention that they're expecting to see at least one, if not both, of Dobra and Asante back in for the Maidstone game, which of course is not good news. If you do not know, Armando Dobra is a fantastic quality player. A friend of mine is an Ipswich fan, which is the team he's just left to join Chesterfield, and he was very unpleased that he did leave. Someone who was on the cusp of getting into that first team. He's got exceptional quality on the ball. His ball playing is fantastic. I watched a clip earlier of Chesterfield versus Barnet. Shamanga got a goal, and the ball from Dobra was just outstanding. It's something, an outside of the football, which is just so perfectly weighted for Shamanga to take in his stride and finish the goal off. They've got very high quality players. Asante has stepped up massively. He's been fantastic this season, considering Shamanga has not really played all that much. Joe Quigley, someone who of course we'll be familiar with, although he's not the best goal scorer in the world, what he does for this team is exceptional. His work rate, his work ethic, how he brings other people into the game really opens up a multifaceted attack for Chesterfield. And hopefully, they do remain a little bit quiet. Of course, it's going to be a slightly different atmosphere than what they might be used to. Chesterfield, of course, it's going to be on the 3G, which is something they've addressed before the game as something that they don't particularly like. They of course have players who may be concerned about playing on 3G, hence the maybe potentially dubious result against Dorking. Again, they did have 9 men against Dorking in that 2-2 draw, so of course that is going to play into it significantly. I think their goalkeeper Coverland was sent off as well. But yeah, they are able to be got at. If you've conceded 10 goals in 9 games, whether you're top of the league or not, you can ship goals, and hopefully Maidstone are going to be able to find a way through in this game. In the last 5 games, they've actually conceded 6 goals, 2 against Southend as well, who of course are in 17th in the table. So, they've conceded 4 goals in the last 2 games to teams below us in the table, which means the opportunity to score is potentially there. Having watched back some of the clips from this season on their highlight reels, Coverland in goal does seem to be a bit of a liability. He's got some fantastic saves in him, absolutely outstanding saves. Seems to be a pretty good shot stopper, but when it comes to that kind of rushing out and thinking a little bit more, applying yourself in a one-to-one outcoming situation, he can slip up. He really can slip up. He's given away red cards. He's given away penalty kicks, I think, this season. So, we do have to try and make the most of that. We may see the kind of balls over the top thing that we've seen in recent weeks, maybe lumped up towards Byron, Patson, Deacon, come into play again in this game, which I know people don't want to hear, but in this circumstance could potentially be the way to play. We aren't going to be able to play total football. We're not going to be able to out press, out pass, out kind of technical play Chesterfield, however you want to word it. They are better than us in every single department, which is of course something we have to be aware of. We have to adapt our game to that. Of course, everyone wants to see Maidstone play Maidstone's way, but sometimes you do have to adjust to the opposition. Looking at their defence, as I mentioned, shipped a few goals. They have actually kept 3 clean sheets in 9 games this season, which isn't too bad. 3 clean sheets, 6 games. They have conceded in. Those were against Aldershot, Wrexham and Oldham. So again, some teams which we have conceded goals to. Wrexham, of course, absolutely battered us. Aldershot did score a very good goal against us, had some good opportunities in that game, but they couldn't score against Chesterfield. So again, it's going to be a strange one. It is going to be a really strange one. For me, it's going to be damage limitation. To be purely honest, it is going to be damage limitation. They're going to see the return potentially of 2 of the best players in their side. Shamanga may well come back in as well. Obviously, he's had his transfer debacle over the summer, which may be a factor as to why he's not featuring as much. Of course, he is still returning from that injury, but that is not to say he's not a quality player anyway. We do have to be very, very sturdy at the back in this game. And for me, I think a change of system is in order. Hakan, I think, did say before the start of the season that, there are going to be games this season where we are going to have to change the system. We are going to have to set up a little bit differently to what we're used to in order to attempt to get a result from the game. And, the stereotypical 4-3-3 that Maidstone have seen under Hakan Hayretin isn't going to cut it for me in this game. We saw against Bromley how defensively frail we can be at times, the lack of organisation, the lack of structure, how people can cut through the team, how physical presence can be used. Well, this is going to be a slightly different game. Of course, physical presence is a big thing for Chesterfield. Joe Quigley in the side, Shamanga as well, both very physical players up front. Banks in the middle as well is quite a big boy, but they've got that technical ability as well that, you play Bromley and you think they're a very physical side, but also got good technical ability. The technical gulf between Bromley and Chesterfield is worlds apart, and it's going to be really difficult for Maidstone to defend, playing the normal system. So for me, we may see a 5 at the back. This for me would look as something a little bit like potentially Tom Hadler in goal. This for me, just to help organise the sheer number we're probably going to have back. We'd probably see Joe Lowell, George Fowler, Jack Cooley making up the back 3. This is simply because Cody Leons-Foster has unfortunately not had a great last couple of games. Potentially Ryan Galvin back on the left. I did hear that it was just a head knock from the last game, which saw him substituted off, so he should be okay for this one. Gavin Hoyt on that right wing back role, being able to get up and down the line. He's got an engine, Gavin. Let's make sure we use it. Keep the 3 in the midfield. Bivesh, of course, Regan Booty and Sam Corn. And then two up front for me. Two up front for me could be quite useful. Instead of maybe even using Bivesh, we may see Rory Deacon in that midfield. So we have Regan Booty, Sam Corn a little bit deeper, Deacon a little bit more forward. And then, of course, two people up front. And for me, those two people up front could be any combination of the three strikers who we've got fit at the moment. James Alabi, for me, kind of has to start, really. Looking at the physicality that needs to be applied in this game to try and break through, create a different option at times in this game. James Alabi is really the only forward player we've got that can do that. So for me, I think he's got to get a game. Jack Barham, of course, unfortunately for him, has been ushered out of games lately just due to the physicality of the league. The style of play that we're using is really not fitting him at the moment. So I think I'd still start him up front with James Alabi in this game, see how they can work together. We saw it very, very, very shortly, the two striker formation against Wrexham in the second half there. So, it is something that's in the bank. It is something that is a possibility that we could use. And I think this game is probably the one we need to use it. If we can just ship 1 or 2 goals to Chesterfield in this game, remain solid at the back. They're not a high scoring team at the moment, Chesterfield. They're a very consistent scoring team, but they haven't yet wiped the floor with anybody. The most they've scored in a game is 3. I think they've only done that twice, that being against Barnet and Southend. I may be wrong, but they definitely haven't scored more than 3 in a game this season, and they do average pretty much 2 every other game. So, if we can just limit them to 1 or 2, then we may be able to do what we saw Dorking, Notts, Yeovil do, and manage to come back, nick a point in this game. Of course, the Stones are coming into this one off the back of some pretty poor form, to be honest. We've managed to get 7 points in the last 5 games. Of course, the 2 wins over the bank holiday weekend almost a month ago now. In the last 3 games, a loss versus Gateshead, draw against Wealdstone, a loss against Bromley at 6 goals scored, 9 goals conceded in the last 5. So, we have got goals in there. 6 goals in 5 games isn't terrible. It needs to be better than that, but at least it's not worse than that. 9 goals conceded in 5 games is, of course, not excellent by any means, but, Chesterfield have conceded 6, we've conceded 9, they're top of the league, we're in 15th. So, we're not too far off being a decent side in this division. We do need to just make sure we get the basics right, make sure we're defensively set up, so we can at least have some form of competition against Chesterfield in this game. By no means am I expecting us to win. By no means am I expecting us to come away with a point in this game. But I'm expecting us to put in a performance worthy of respect from the fan base. And I think that's all most fans are asking for. We're looking at Chesterfield. We looked at Wrexham. We looked at Gateshead. When we've seen the kind of big losses so far in this league, the main disappointment from fans has not been the result, it's been the nature of it. Fans aren't always everybody's disappointed with a loss, but some fans, feel even more disappointed by the nature of it. How you conduct yourself on the field when you lose a game. Do your heads drop? Do you stop putting in those last-ditch challenges? Do you back out of 50-50s? Well, that's something we're going to have to not see in this game. We're going to have to see a lot more passion from this side. We're going to have to see a lot more fight, tenacity, especially in that midfield area. We need to try and get on top as much as we can this game. I'm not expecting anything more than maybe 10, 20, 30 minutes throughout this game where Maidstone do get time on the ball, as that is the style of play that Chesterfield use. They're a very good ball-playing side, so trying to just maintain a little bit of possession, keep the composure, stay solid at the back, and try and hit on the break is probably going to be the best opportunity we've got a result in this game. Of course, if you get players into the box, there's always an opportunity to get a penalty, but for me, the main thing we have to do in this game, and it's something I've said in my recent previews as well, is we need to shoot. Really need to get shots off. Coverland has been caught out a couple times as well. He looked to concede a pretty poor goal against Barnet for me. Hit an early shot towards Coverland, and it did catch him off a little bit. Couldn't get down into the corner in time. So for me, if we've got people like Regan Booty, Jack Barham, Sam Corn, these players can all hit one from a good distance. Just getting early shots off. As soon as we get a couple yards free in and around the 18-yard box, then we need to be taking advantage of that. We need to be using that as an opportunity, because in terms of clear-cut opportunities where you're one-on-one with a goalkeeper and that's a golden opportunity to shoot and score, we're really unlikely to get that against Chesterfield. So anything that even sniffs and smells like a opportunity in this game has to be taken. Whether it's 3 or 4 yards on the edge of the box, whether it's from a corner and somebody's rushing in and sees that opportunity, a little bit of space there in the box, or the ball drops to someone, and instead of taking the time and looking around for a pass, you've got to anticipate that Chesterfield, as defensively capable as they can be, are going to be there to pick up any extra men. So sometimes you've got to back yourself and take your opportunities. So for me, I am going to predict a loss in this game. It's the first time I think I predicted a loss this season. I think even against Wrexham, I predicted a draw. But I'm just trying to be realistic. I don't want to try and enforce this unrealistic expectation on the team, in which people who might watch this video go, well, he's someone who's said he's done his research and he thinks we can get a point from this game. We can get a point from this game. We are capable of doing that. But I want to set the realistic expectations, avoid this sort of undeserved disappointment in a team result. I do think it's going to be a narrow defeat, a very narrow defeat. I think we're going to lose 2-1. I would not be surprised if we pulled out a draw in this game, or even a win, just because we've got that home crowd behind us. They're going to be dying for a result after the last 2 or 3 games. But for me, they have got that golfing quality. So 2-1 loss is going to be my prediction. I do think we're going to score first, and then they're going to come back. I think we might struggle to try and keep them out for so long, but if we do stay maintained and we do nick a goal, then you never know what might happen in this game. So hopefully you have all enjoyed this little insight into the Maidstone versus Chesterfield game in this preview. If you did like the video, then of course do leave a like. Leave your comments down below on how you think this game is going to go. And of course, stay tuned for the review in a few days' time after this game. Hopefully we got something to shout about, something to bring home and celebrate. But at the moment, my hopes aren't quite so high just yet. So we'll see if I'm proven wrong in a couple of days' time. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.